Right. Welcome to you coming on here. Let's give it a few minutes to let people join. You're in the right place if you're here for the webinar Wednesday from Builder Partnerships and the Shin Group. I see attendees coming in. All right. Looks like we got a good showing so far. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'm going to kick it off. For those of you that show up on time, my dad was a West Pointer, so welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Webinar Wednesday is brought to you by Shin Builder Partnerships and the Shin Group. And our companies together exist to help private home builders become the builder of choice in their markets. And we do that by offering world-class education and coaching programs focused on efficiency, quality, and profitability. My name is Brian Wildermuth. I'm with the Shin Group and Builder Partnerships collectively. We've got a great webinar for you today, being brought to you by our partners at TK Design. They're a residential architecture firm based out of Lyon, Michigan. And they work with custom and production home builders all over the country. They do a phenomenal job. The webinar today is titled, Is BIM Right for You? And I think it's a great topic, and they're going to do a great job. But before I introduce the speakers, I got a little bit of housekeeping. As the folks are joining here, if you have a question throughout the webinar, please just pop it in the chat. We're going to go about 30 minutes presenting, and we'll leave some time at the end for question and answer. So don't jump off when it's over, because a lot of the good stuff comes at the end when we get your questions and we get to dig into it with our hosts. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on. We've got two great speakers. If you guys want to bring your camera on, make a good introduction to you. First, we have Eric Tiffin. He's the President of Business Development and Production Services at TK. What's great about Eric is he's been in the industry. He's got a lot of experience on the construction side, and he's a laborer, carpenter, estimator, architectural draft person, and designer. He's done it all. So with that, he's able to kind of bridge the gap between the architects and the field personnel and to really ensure clear communication throughout the projects. And Eric's joined by a top project manager at TK, Grant Till. He brings a strong background in architectural design. He graduated from Lawrence Technology University, and he's proficient in Rivet, so which helps him contribute to a wide range of architectural projects. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, I'm just going to let you guys take it away now. This is your show. So I'll jump back on the end to help with the question and answer. Take it away.
All right. We're going to put it in a little presenter view here. So give us just a second. Hopefully the technology doesn't fail us. Okay. Can you guys see our screen now?
Yep. All good.
All right. Cool. So as Brian mentioned, I'm Eric. This is Grant. We are a national firm. We do stuff all around the country, single family, multifamily, anything 3 stories or less. And our goal, in conjunction with Shin Consulting, is to help builders organize their plan sets, and the ultimate goal being to help them increase sales and reduce building costs. We can jump right in if you're ready.
Yep.
Ready to go? Yep. All right, let's hit the next one. You guys can still see that, right? All right. Now, what is BIM? BIM is short for information or building information management. It is the process of creating and managing information in a built asset. And what you're seeing on the screen here, just a couple screenshots of things that you might be familiar in BIM. We've got some HVAC layouts, we've got some plumbing layouts, and we've got some framing layouts. So let's keep moving right on. We often hear several myths, and here we're going to dispel 5 of them, some of the ones we hear the most. So let's jump right in on the next slide. The computer does it all for you. I've heard this a million times. Grant, what do you do when you work all day? Are you just drinking coffee, or what's your day-to-day look
I mean,
like?
I would love to just sit around and, drink coffee and kick back like this guy is on the screen, but no, unfortunately not.
So the reality is, it couldn't be farther from the truth. The computer only does what we tell it to do. There's lots of upfront work to make things look simple. So, you see all that fancy AutoCAD stuff and the 3D stuff you get online. There's a lot of work that goes into those, upfront. The reality for us in our industry is Revit is kind of becoming the industry standard. It's a 3D program. There's other 3D softwares out there as well. But Revit is being taught in colleges. So as we interview people, they're coming to us with Revit experience. They don't really have CAD experience anymore. The point being, 3D modeling, Revit, that is becoming the norm, and the 2D stuff is going to become obsolete pretty soon.
Yeah, let me jump in. So like Eric was saying, there is a lot of front end work, and then more on the topic of how people are being trained in schooling. So like Brian said, I went to school at Lawrence Tech for 4 years. I only had about a half of semester of training in CAD, so it was really hard for me to find a job somewhere, and because everywhere all my experience was in Revit. So thankfully I found a job here, and I'm able to use my skills more efficiently here.
Yeah, so the norm is everybody's moving towards that 3D environment.
Okay, good for the next one.
Yep, sure. Another myth we want to dispel. All I have to do is buy the software. Initially, BIM software is actually somewhat unusable out of the box. It really, any of this design software we use, it comes with very limited amounts of information in them. For Revit, we're speaking about Revit. So what that's coming with is maybe some walls, windows, and doors, some roof lines and things like that. But most of what we use in that 3D environment, we actually have to build. We have to create internally, and I'll let Grant expand on that.
Yeah, so one of the things I talked with Eric about is how long it took us as a company to get our Revit library and components up to snuff to do all the things we wanted to do. So when your your families and your components all need to have information and data attached to them. So when you pull stuff out of it, it gives you the right information and data that you want to be looking at specifically.
Specifically takeoffs and things like that.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little later, like material takeoffs. I mean, that's the main one, but
Costing,
it's
PO
yeah,
creation.
it can do, so you can even put in for linear feet of whatever, it costs this much per linear feet, and you can even get that estimated out the back end of it.
But that's not coming with the software.
Right, you have to put that information into it. That's where a lot of that front end work comes into play.
So, a lot of you guys listening out there or watching our webinar, you might often think, okay, how do I transition into doing that in my office? The reality is there is a lot of upfront work to make it work for you, but there are ways to learn and make that learning curve a little bit easier.
Yeah, and there are companies that can help you with the setup.
They can even sell you, what do you call it, 3D modeling families.
Yeah.
You can purchase 3D and a 3D environment from companies out there.
Yeah, you can purchase full libraries and things that are ready to go.
Yep. All right, next one. BIM is just for large companies. I used to hear this a lot more, and I'd say that was true 15, 20 years ago. Throughout my career, I've been doing this architecture thing for over 25 years. I've been part of a BIM implementation. This is probably the 4th time. The first 3 times it failed miserably. I believe that the software itself is becoming more user-friendly, and it is now offering more options for smaller companies like the 25, 50, 100 home a year builder. Grant, anything you want to expand?
Yeah, I mean, like Brian was saying, I work with a lot of production builders around the States. When I started here, I worked with a larger one that used a BIM software. I manage 2 or 3 now. A couple of them are smaller, like Eric said, like 30 to 50 houses a year. They don't do a lot, but they all use BIM in their own unique ways. They all have different things that they try to get out of BIM, and we'll get into that stuff a little later.
The bottom line is, It depends on your business model and your budget, but there are ways BIM or 3D modeling can help work for you and help you do more with less. Next one. Okay, number 4 myth. I will have to let all my in-house drafters go. So a lot of people that I talk to across the country, you know, whether they're building 25 homes a year or 1,500, they may have in-house drafters. And those in-house drafters, what ends up happening is they can still draft, they become architectural managers at that point. You know, for us, when we interact with a client, we often will draw their models for them and we can turn them over to them, and those in-house drafters can now manage those models. And there might be some custom changes they have to make. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so like we said before, there's a lot of front end work. Like for production builders, they're always drafting new plans, right? They don't want the same 10, 12. Sometimes you want to design a new plan. That's the perfect thing for your in-house drafter to take on. At the back end, when if you get a lot specific set and then you're one of those builders that offer custom changes like extra windows, or you know, if someone wants that bedroom to be 2 foot bigger or something like that nature, that's still what your drafters are going to be able to do at the back end.
Okay. All right, next. BIM software will quickly become obsolete and I will have to reinvest in a few years. I hear this one semi-often, and it was kind of true, at least it felt kind of true for a little while there. When I started in this business, in the architecture side of it, it was that transition from drafting, like hand drafting, to CAD drafting. This was, again, like 25 years ago. Everybody thought that BIM was going to make CAD drafting obsolete. The reality is we still do CAD drafting. It's just that the software is starting to progress a little bit more quickly and become more user-friendly, more affordable. I personally see that happening again, where there will be some improvements on the software or maybe a drastic change, but that could be 10 or 15 years down the road. The question is, where do you want to be when that time happens? The way the software works is, as they improve and progress, they play off of like their predecessors, the Revits, the AutoCAD. So the commands in the 3D environment is very similar. They just improve. So let's say 10 years from now, the software takes a drastic change. Well, if you haven't transitioned over that 10 years, you're going to be stuck in the lurch, and you're not going to have anybody internally that can actually make that transition very smoothly.
Yeah, and I like this video, or this picture we put up here on the typewriter, because I was in Eric's office the other day and he was typing something on his keyboard and he was just mashing the keyboard. And I asked him, I said, Eric, why are you mashing your keyboard? You just have to lightly tap things. And he was like, that's because I learned to type on a typewriter. So I think it's a good analogy. Like coming from AutoCAD to Revit is like coming from a typewriter to a keyboard, right? The skills are still going to be there. They're both developed by the same company. So it's like
the interface is different.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next, moving on. Now, the question we often get to, obviously, is what do we get for our investment? First, I want to talk about the difference in cost between 2D AutoCAD and 3D Revit or any other BIM model. For us, the cost to jump from a 2D AutoCAD typical drawing to a 3D is about 20 to 25% in additional cost. And the reason is because it actually takes us longer to draw that home and to draw that plan set with all the options and elevations in Revit than it will in a 2D environment. But the reality is, at the end, we're not comparing apples to apples anymore. We're comparing apples to pineapples. Now, what do we get in a typical set of BIM drawings? You get your standard 2D set of plans, just like you're used to seeing. If you're one of those builders out there that has 2 or 3 different elevations for a plan and maybe a dozen options and electrical and plumbing and all the things, your plan set could be 50, 100 pages long. We can still provide you that. The difference is, what do you get in addition to that set of plans? So the number one thing builders are looking for is material takeoffs. And that is one of the benefits you get out of a BIM drawing. You get the ability to feed information. You can extract it from the software, from the 3D objects that we've created and the data that we've applied to it. And you can get like a material list, and that material list can be fed into your office management system. There's several of them out there. I'll let Grant expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so as you mentioned before, there's different levels, there's different, however much work you want to put into the front end is how much information is going to spit out on the back end. So kind of what you're looking at here is an Excel sheet, because it spits it all out in an Excel format. And this is just an example. This is just a small part of it. This is a practice house that I was doing on for this presentation. So the way it spits it out is it spits it out like by category. So it's going to say, hey, here's all your doors, here's all your cabinets, here's all your whatever for the house, for everything, all the information you put in there. It can be separated however you want it to be. I separated it by floor because Eric's experience says that that's how everybody wants it separated.
The reason we would separate it by floor is most builders, you know, a big portion of your construction is framing. And most builders, you know, they don't have the room on a site to drop all their framing lumber at one time. So they want it delivered by floor. So I ask them, whenever we do a simple data extraction, I say extract it by floor.
Yeah, and it can look however you want it to be if you want to, you know, clean it up a little more. But more towards the levels, like he was saying. So his favorite buzzword around here is level 1, so like your sticks and bricks. You get your stud walls, you get your linear feet of sheathing, you know, your roof, how much mortar you're going to use, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, what he means by levels is there's different levels of takeoffs that we can do.
Correct. Yeah.
You get your basic sticks and bricks, your sheathing, your shingles, square footage, your drywall square footage, all your exterior finishes, things like that. That's the basic stuff. And then we can go in a little deeper.
Yeah, you can, like one of my builders even has like toilet paper holders, for instance. You can add information to those, like light switches. All the little nuances you want to be taken off can
all be added in. Now, of course, there might be additional costs to do that, but the idea is, you know, if you're trying to streamline your estimating, you know, one of the things I hear all the time from builders is their bottleneck is estimating and bidding. What this can do for you, you know, let's say you put in the extra amount of work and you get all your casings, your crown moldings, your baseboards, your carpet, your tile, all that stuff. That data can be extracted and now you can feed it in. There's tons of add-on softwares that go along with Revit. And that's part of what using the industry standard brings you is all these other companies provide add-on software that can help you. One of them in particular, Simpson Strong-Tie has, I believe it's called Pipeline, where you can feed this data into their software and it will spit out at some point, don't ask me the details, but at the end, you can get pricing, you can get all your POs, all your order POs, and everything you need for that particular home. Now, another thing you get is a 3D model ready to use. In this view, we have a 3D model that's been rendered. So we've taken some add-on software and rendered the 3D model. The basic version is a more grayscale, doesn't have all the fancy photos on the walls and the you know, candlesticks on the tables, but it's a good massing model.
Right, and if you're using, say like a third-party company to create these views and stuff, and you only send them a 2D view, they have to take the time to then create a 3D view or a 3D model for that to create these things for you. If you do this with, and I know we've been throwing the word Revit around. Revit is a form of BIM, right?
Yeah, it's the popular one.
It's the one that we use here in the office. So that's the one that I'm mainly familiar with. But if you have like Revit per se, and you provide them with a 3D model, it cuts the time down dramatically for them to create something like this.
Which means it cuts the price down.
Right. So what you're seeing here is like renders of all the site elevations. Normally, something that we do in the office, and like other people do it for sure, is like 3D walkthroughs. So you'd like walk around the whole building, you'd be able to walk into the building and see all the interior spaces and stuff.
Sure. All right, next. Okay, simple visual communication with your trades is one thing that you'll get with a 3D model. And what I mean by that is I often talk to builders who their trades, especially their framers, don't speak English. And when they're in the field and they come across an issue, one of two things happen. Either they call out your superintendents or project managers, that person will show up on the job site and they'll try to help them troubleshoot. And oftentimes they're doing that with speaking two different languages, so it's a struggle. I either see that, or the other choice is they don't do anything and they just keep going, and you don't find out until it becomes a real problem.
And they just wing it.
And they just wing it, right? With a 3D model, now there's different versions of a 3D model, but one that we've provided with for our clients in the past is a framing model. So we can show the whole house. We can strip back all the bricks and the drywall and all the things, and you can see just the frame. We can give you a link to that frame, and your builders on site, your framers can they can do it on their phone, they can do it on an iPad. And they click,
all that kind
yep, they click the link and they can go into that 3D model and they can move it around real time, and they can see where potential conflicts might happen or how to troubleshoot something. So now, instead of this becoming a problem down the road or them taking up the time for your superintendents, they're actually solving their problems just by looking at that 3D model. Another thing that we can do with the 3D model is we can get accurate lot-specific plan sets in a shorter turnaround time by using Lot Spec. Lot Spec is an add-on software created by Simpson Strong-Tie. That Lot Spec software will take that 3D environment, all the options, all the electrical, all the whatever things you put into it, and by putting in some upfront work, we can create this. What you see on the screen is what I call the interface. Grant, you want to go into detail about that one?
Yeah, so like what you're seeing on the screen is like kind of like what your salesperson would see, sort of like more of a cleaned up version, but you'd be able to select your elevations, whatever options you'd want. And then, so we use this plugin from SST called Lot Spec into Revit. There are other programs that do it. We've played around with a few. This is the one that we use in the office though. So what it does is it takes all the options you select and puzzle piece it together, and then it gives you a lot specific plan set with all of those options in it.
So what I often see builders doing is they'll take that 50 or 100 or 150 page set of plans, and they'll distribute that to their trades, and they'll give them a list of options that the client chose. And those trades, it's now their job to go in there and figure out what pages they need, what pages they don't. By using Lot Spec, all that data is input into the software. You can go through here in this interface and just check box the options you picked. It'll put that whole entire custom home together. And now, instead of having 100 pages, now you got maybe
14,
a dozen
15,
or 20 or whatever.
Yeah, typically they go down from over 100 to about 14 and 15.
Yeah, and that process of taking that checklist from the salesperson and checking these boxes and creating that custom home, it's very short. Like, you could now, instead of it taking days or a week or whatever to get these plans done, you can do it in a matter of minutes or hours. And once it's solved, now this is the point where the software is actually doing everything for you, right?
Yeah, but the amount of work you had to put into the front end is
right. There's a lot of upfront work to get it to do that, but if you do it correctly, you hit solve, you go grab a cup of coffee, you come back, and you got a plan set. But now it's it's the responsibility of the person, the drafter, to go back through and double check to make sure that everything's solved accurately. Takes a little bit of time, but it definitely reduces the amount of time it takes for you to get a lot specific custom home for that sold job.
Yeah, or like I was saying earlier, some of the builders we do have allow their clients to do custom changes afterwards, which is where your drafter would then take that lot specific, because it does spit out a new Revit model that you can manipulate as well. So you can make those custom changes to your lot specific set as well.
All right, next. I'm sure many of you out there are familiar with a Matterport. Matterport, for those of you who aren't, is, you go online. I see them in car companies too, where you go online and you can get inside of a built environment and click the little circles on the floor and you can walk around the home. In a car situation, in an automotive situation, you can spin around and look inside a car. That's always been possible by building a model first and then paying $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever it is for the digital company to come in and move their 3D camera around inside the built unit, recording all their images and then splicing it together to create that Matterport. And now your customers can go online, they can click inside, they can click the circles on the floor, and they can walk around. I'm sure most of you have seen that. With a 3D model, we can actually do that Matterport style interface without ever having to build the home. So what I hear from builders all the time is, well, we sell more of the models that we build than we do any other plan because people can now walk inside the model if it's built and they can see it and they're more apt to buy it. When you have the 3D model and you're able to create that Matterport, you can now have your clients walk through every single one of your plans virtually. So you end up selling more of the plans that you manage, but the added benefit is you now may get a better streetscape down your neighborhoods because you're not selling the same house over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. Next. And that pretty much concludes our slideshow. The reality is there's many possibilities with BIM. There's different softwares out there. There's some leaders out there. There's some ones that have been around for a long time, but maybe don't have the same capabilities as what the new software is coming up. But what I encourage you guys to do if you're interested in learning more about BIM is talk to your company's designer, local architect, in-house drafters, learn what options that are available out there, and maybe kind of go down that road and try to glean information. If any of you, even if you're using a local architect or an in-house drafter and you have questions and you want to see an example of what BIM can do, we're happy to help you with that. Just give us a call and we'll schedule a meeting for you. All right, let me stop
Great.
sharing.
Hey guys, don't run here. We got some questions in the chat, but I kind of want to just tag on to the end there. Do you guys have examples on your website?
We do. That is true.
Yeah.
You can go on our website, and by the way, on that on our slides, you saw the little, I don't know, what are they called, QR codes. You can scan those. It'll take you right to the website. There are some examples on there.
Oh, we'll bring that back up for a second. Bring the QR code up there.
All right, cool.
While you're doing that, I got some questions that came into the chat. First is, you were just kind of touching on this at the end there, Eric. What are my options to convert to BIM? Like what program, who does it?
Sure. So there's obviously Revit. We've talked a lot about that. There's another company out there called Hierarch, which I know a lot of you have heard about, especially if you're part of this builder partnerships group, because I know that they're also a vendor. They've got a pretty good software going. Then there is like a soft plan, which has been around for a while. It's a little less capable, in my opinion, than the other stuff out there, but it's definitely an option. I think the reality is you have to determine what your goals are and what your budget is, and then you can start talking about which program to use.
Well, that's perfect. That dovetails into the question, what does it cost?
That's a loaded question. It varies greatly on what you want to get out of it. So as I mentioned before, for us, it's about a 20 to 25% add-on to go from 2D to 3D, and that's to get your basic sticks and bricks. If you want to go a little bit deeper to get the toilet paper holders, the towel holders, the crown moldings, the casing, we can do that. But what I'd want to do is see your drawings that we're working with and bid it for you.
Is that based on an hourly, how long it takes to produce, or do you, just so people have some idea of the cost structure?
It could be. If you're bringing us designs, we would base it on a flat rate to redraw your stuff inside the 3D environment. And then we can give you levels of takeoffs, and that would be based on by the hour.
Okay. By the way, while I'm asking, I've got a couple more here. If anybody else has a question that's still, we got everybody still on, please pop it in the chat. Love to ask these guys while we got them live. But that being said, let's see, we got another question was, how long does it take to get a set of plans?
Excellent question. So, and I can only really truly speak on us because, you know, I'm not inside everybody else's business. But for us, if let's say we did 3 plans with 3 elevations with a few options each, the ideal goal is to build one model first. So we work out all the details, all the nuances first, make sure we get all the client's requirements done in that first model, and that becomes our template.
Yeah, it's kind of like an onboarding process. So something like I do with my BIM clients is I make sure to get one fully built, and then I can take that plan and I have a template already made, and then I can implement all of the other, so say they have like, what, 3 plans? Then I can take that first one that I already had done, and then I can use that for the next ones.
So I would say that process, 3 plans, couple different elevations, couple options, that would be 3 to 4 months. And that means, that doesn't mean it takes 3 to 4 months to get anything. It means it takes 3 to 4 months to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
We can start feeding you stuff as we go.
And then that's fully ready to go. You could do all your lot specific plans from there. You can make entire neighborhoods or whatever, you know.
Okay, great. Someone came in and asked, and maybe you've already, I know you covered this a little bit. But what do you get for the extra cost? So I think you mentioned in the presentation, it's did you say 20% increase over?
Yeah, 20 to 25, depending on what your needs are, yeah.
Okay.
What do you get for the extra cost? You get the 3D model, which can now be used to do other things, such as you can send that link to your clients. You can use that link to create Matterports, or that 3D model to create Matterports. You can use add-on software to get back office management, such as POs, pricing, things like that. So you can add on other programs such as Lot Spec, which can help you create your lot specifics very quickly. The benefit to that Lot Spec software and using the back-end software that can price things for you is you now can take your model, and instead of having somebody sit down and do all the estimating, like once you create the sold job, all of that can be done with your 3D model. So it can extract all the information out and all your pricing is done for you. So that bottleneck of bidding is either greatly reduced or now eliminated. I mean, there's literally dozens and dozens of different add-on softwares that you can use depending on what your goals are. And the benefit to me of using something like that, like a Revit software that's taught in schools and that's becoming like the industry norm, is that there's software companies continuously creating more add-on stuff that you can use to benefit you with that 3D model.
Right, and like you said, the drafters that you eventually hire, if you do hire in-house drafters, are better suited and already trained in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, your 2D drafts people are becoming obsolete at this point.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think that covers it all. Best way for them to reach you is to scan this QR code here.
Yep, you can scan the QR code. You can just search TK Design. We got a pretty good web presence, so we'll pop up that way. All our contact information is on our website. You can meet the team. You can see a lot of examples of our work. Obviously, give me a call if you got questions, and we'd be happy to set up a meeting.
Yeah, I believe we have a newsletter too or something that you can sign up for.
Yep.
All that good stuff.
Excellent. Well, we truly appreciate all your time. Let's see. Did I just get a question? Oh, golly. Hey, sorry, I got one more question. We got to get this in. What is your best practice for takeoffs? Do you recommend pipeline?
I personally recommend Pipeline. Now, I can't say I'm a user of it because I'm not a builder. I do the architecture part. Pipeline has been around for many, many years now. So meaning it's been developed, it's been improved. I find that their software, from what I'm told from other clients, is it works well and it's easily trainable. And with Pipeline, like Simpson Strong Tie offers training. So as you purchase the software, they'll actually send people to your office and train you how to use it.
And the nice part about working with a company like that, they already have, so something we were talking about earlier was having to get your library and everything ready to do that. They have that stuff already available for you at SST.
Yeah.
It's great. Great. And one last one, and then we'll let everybody go. It is, where does software like Chief Architect fit in?
So I don't think Grant's ever even seen Chief Architect.
I used it in high school. It was actually the first 3D thing that I actually was trained on. And then I kind of never heard of it ever again.
So Chief Architect and what was the other one I mentioned? SoftPlan. Those have been around for a long time. Guys like me, guys like, companies like TK Design, we don't use them because they are not fully customizable. You get what you get. There's not too much you can do inside of that to create and modify your environment. With softwares like Revit, the reason they're expensive is because there's constant R&D going on. They're always improving it. And like for users like us, as I mentioned before, out of the box, the software doesn't really give you much. We customize it and make it our own to do what we want it to do. We can program it. And that's why Revit and AutoCAD and things like that are more appealing. And like SoftPlan and Chief Architect are less appealing for us.
Yeah, and the community with Revit is a lot easier. Like if you create an object, you can upload it and other people can use it. So it's a lot more of like sharing ideas and things like that as well.
And I think it's worth mentioning too that with Revit is maintained by Autodesk.
Right.
It started somewhere else and it got bought out by Autodesk. Autodesk is a very big company. They've been around in the industry creating 3D software for, I don't know, 40 years or something. So anything you do in Revit can actually be extracted to an AutoCAD file as well. So we often work with like site engineers, things like that, and they need backgrounds, as we call them. They need CAD files to work off of. So we can take Revit, we can extract it into a DWG, and we can send it to those other engineers and stuff so they can get their jobs done.
Yeah, it's just a few clicks to export it to a CAD.
Working with industry standard software means that everybody that you work with, you engage with outside of your company, can also work with it. When you're working with other things like Chief Architect and SoftPlan, I know that you can extract those to DWGs, but the end result is much less usable than these other softwares.
Yeah, because they're still strict on how you're able to use them. They're more rigid.
Well, excellent. As you guys can tell, these guys know what they're talking about. They've got a lot of experience around this. So please scan that QR code. Thank you guys for your awesome presentation today.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
You bet. And for those of you on